Hello everyone, welcome to this month's Roundtable. We are the members of International Relations and Foreign Policy Cluster from Nickel and Dime, which is the official research and publication platform for CNES. As panelists today, we have Tanish, Nakul, Rohit, and myself. And we have Yashavardhan, who is going to be moderating the roundtable for today. I would therefore like to request Yashavardhan to begin with a brief introduction of what we shall be discussing in this episode of Roundtable.
Thank you, Sarah. So the theme for this roundtable discussion revolves around the Indo-Russian relationship as to how it has emerged, what is its current status, and what are its future prospects. So just to begin with, Imperial Russia had always kept a keen interest in India, with its rivalry with the British in the 19th century beginning as a result of the secret plans to invade India in 1801. And there have been major breakthroughs since then and deepening of the ties between the two countries. But the question that I would want to pose to the panel here would be that how would you describe the historical significance of the India-Russia relationship, and how do you think it has evolved over time? So just to give a brief primer, the post-Cold War, the Cold War period essentially provided the diplomatic breakthrough between the two countries, where in the 1950s, after Stalin had essentially left out India in its geopolitical position, Nikita Khrushchev and Nehru began deepening of the ties between the two countries. And this led to the Russia's involvement and assistance being provided to India in form of its military during the Sino-Indian War of 1962 and the India-Pakistan War in 1965, with Russia being involved in brokering the peace between India and Pakistan during the 1965 war. This followed on from the 1971 war between India and Pakistan, where India and USSR were able to sort of deepen their diplomatic ties by signing a friendship and cooperation treaty. However, as the USSR disintegrated and India also adopted liberalization policies, the relationship between the two countries has sort of become muddled. And just to follow on, Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you, Yashavardhan. I believe that the India-Russia relationship is historically significant and has evolved into a strategic partnership over time. It originated during the Cold War when India and the Soviet Union shared ideological commonalities and strong diplomatic ties. The signing of the Indo-Soviet Treaty in 1970s marked a crucial moment in the relationship, according to me. And despite the Soviet Union's dissolution in the 1990s, India and Russia maintained their ties and elevated their partnership into a strategic level in 2000s. So the relationship has diversified over time, encompassing defense, energy, stability, strategic depth, and the historical significance lies in enduring the friendship and the understanding between the two countries, which has withstood the geopolitical shifts and stood the test of time, in my opinion.
Thank you, Sarah, for such a comprehensive answer. Anyone else would want to add to it? All right. Okay. So moving on to the next question. Russia's growing engagement with China has been a significant development in recent years. How does this affect India's strategic calculus, and what implications does it have for the India-Russia relationship? Nakul, go ahead.
Right. Thank you. So obviously we are aware of the fact that Russia has had a lackluster performance in the Ukraine war. It has led to their deepening of their political, economic, and military dependence on China, which can also be seen from the fact that they have increased their energy exports to China. China has also implemented yuan as an alternate form of currency to carry on payments with Russia. Now, all this is important to understand within the context of India, because previously India used to enjoy a sort of advantage over other countries in the Indo-Pacific and Eurasia, because we had a strong dependence on Russian military weapons and the technology. Now that is not the scenario anymore, because China also now possesses the very same technology and very same weapons because of the increasing dependence. So India in that situation will not possess the technological superiority or that advantage anymore, which will eventually lead us, India, to recalibrate our diplomatic relationship and move towards the West and diversify our weapons and our Indian arsenal. Further, I do not think that India will take a very strong, cogent stand, because India is also chairing G20 summit this year. So they have to maintain their diplomatic relations with the West and as well as all the other countries that have been invited. India is also chair of the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So I do not believe that India will be pursuing a very anti-China or Russia narrative or an anti-West narrative, because they have to maintain their diplomatic stance as well. Right.
That's very true. Just adding on to that, India has also uh, engaged with countries like US, Japan, and Australia to form the quadrilateral security dialogue as well, which deepens their economic ties, as well as developing military alliances with US and Israel. So there has been a bit of counterbalancing happening between the two nations. Yes, Anish, go ahead.
I would like to bring up the point of multilateral organizations where all Russia, India, and China are involved. So, if you look at organizations such as BRICS or RIC, I think the economic significance of these organizations is very much shifted towards China. So, while bilateral ties between India and Russia are going to be very similar, I think in multilateral organizations, India is not India is not going to participate in organizations where Russia and China are involved. And I think organizations like the Quad are the ones that actually are going to shape India's foreign policy in the future, and not organizations such as the BRICS or RIC.
Right, excellent points. Again, like just thank you for providing such a comprehensive answer. If anyone doesn't have anything else to add, I would move on to the next question, which involves how do India and Russia's perceive each other's geopolitical significance in the current global landscape, and how does it impact their strategic partnership? Yes, Tanish, go ahead.
I think when it comes to Russia and India, two things that are very important is military equipment and energy, both of which Russia is a very big supplier of, and I think India is the biggest buyer in the world. So right now, I think India and Russia's relations are very much bound by the economic ties between them, since Russia is it's a cheaper alternative to expensive Western military equipment, as well as oil and natural gas that Russia holds a lot of and that we need.
Right, great points. Just to sort of add to that, there has also been development of a north-south trading corridor as well, which will sort of reduce the cost of transportation, which again will improve the economic condition between the two countries. Yes, Sarah, go ahead.
In my opinion, Russia and India perceive each other as geopolitically significant in the current global landscape, and which strengthens their strategic partner overall. India recognizes Russia's global power and military strength and technological capabilities, while Russia acknowledges India's rising significance as a major player in India and global affairs. So this mutual acknowledging, and mutual perception uh, of their powers reinforces the collaboration in defense, energy, and technology. Their alignment on regional stability, counter-terrorism, and a multipolar world order further strengthens their partnership, in my opinion. And despite other strategic engagements, the perception of each other's geopolitical significance forms a robust foundation for the India-Russia relationship. That's about it.
Those are some excellent points. I think also in the recent decades, since the power dynamics between China and Russia and their relationship has sort of shifted, where China is becoming the more dominant power, where Russia is sort of waning in its influence. I think it's also sensible that Russia also seeks to position itself against China by deepening their ties with India as well. So moving on to the fourth question of the discussion, how has India's engagement with other countries, particularly United States, impacted its relationship with Russia in recent years? So as you guys would know that there has been since the 1990s, since the liberalization period, there has been efforts to sort of efforts from India to balance its portfolio as such, where it would maintain uh, ties with both the Western powers as well as US. And to that effect, it has been, as previously mentioned, in the market for military assistance from US, and it has developed economic ties with US as well. And since US views its position as against China in this region, it also seeks to benefit from developing major ties with India. Yes, Nakul.
Right. The only point that I need to more make here is that the impact of relationship of India with other countries, especially US, is I think mutually exclusive and does not have any major repercussions for so, because if you see in 2016 when President Barack Obama, he upgraded India to a major defense partner of the United States to commemorate its closest allies. And even after that, so India has continued to trade both bilaterally with the United States and Russia, taking major defense and military equipment, and has sort of had no repercussions because right now, New Delhi, the representative of the government is working a very thin line in maintaining their own interest over joining alliances as such. Even India has also abstained to, give their condemnation for the Ukraine war. They've yet to make any public statement, and they've shown only reluctance to make any major statement of whether they condemn Putin's actions or not. And even since there's also G20 summit this year, India has been very well equipped to maintain its diplomatic relations, and I do not think that they will have any sort of inclinations towards either the Russia or the West, because they need to maintain a very fine line if they want to, advance their own interests, which they are currently doing so by holding G20, by taking chair of SCO and other bilateral organizations. Yeah.
Those are some great points. Yes, Anna, go ahead.
Thank you. So I believe that while the growing partnership with US had introduced new dynamics to India's foreign policy, it has not led to a decline in the India-Russia relationship, in my opinion. And India has actively sought to maintain its long-standing strategic partnership with Russia while diversifying its strategic partnerships. And the impact of India's engagement with the US on its relationship with Russia has been managed through a balanced approach and opportunities for trilateral cooperation, which has also emerged in recent times. The complexities of India's foreign policy in the current global landscape are evident in navigating these relationships. So, hence the balance, in my opinion.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, Tanish.
I just wanted to add the point that I agree with the other panelists that there's not going to be any major effects. But when it comes to military equipment, I think India is trying to diversify its sources right now. So there's a gradual decrease in the share of Russia in the military equipment that we buy. I think it's down to around 50% now. So I think the buyers that we replace Russia with are mostly Western countries. So that's one of the few places where it could affect our friendship with Russia.
Yeah, and also just to add to it, the threat of sanctions have also sort of loomed over India as well. So like how the, the deepening of the financial ties between the two countries was sort of hindered by the threat of sanctions from US in being imposed on Indian banks has sort of chilled the effect of having that platform to raise funds as well. So I do think that India has to maintain some sort of balancing act between the two powers to find its own focus. So moving on to the last question. How has India and Russia's trade cooperation evolved in recent years? And what are the major achievements as well as the future prospects between the two nations? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Despite the fluctuations, the bilateral trade volume has steadily increased, reaching to about 10 billion in 2020. And the future prospects are promising with potential for diversification into new sectors such as pharmaceuticals, information technology, and agriculture, if I may put out. And the initiatives like the International North South Transport Corridor and the domestic campaigns like Make in India and the Atmanirbhar Bharat contribute to the growth of trade cooperation. And both the countries are committed to strengthening their economic ties, indicating a positive outlook for the future of Indo-Russia trade relationship.
That was pretty insightful, Sarah. Even just adding on to that, Russia has been involved in major economic schemes that India has sort of launched. So even the smart city program that India had launched recently, Russia is sort of contributing its infrastructure efforts to providing India with such projects, as well as providing its cooperation in energy, as well as space projects as well, in terms of satellite launches or space exploration. Uh, there has been some traditional sectors which both India and Russia have sort of benefited their partnership from, but there have also been efforts to sort of explore other uh, uh, opportunities where they can sort of diversify their trade basket. So whether it be like IT, agriculture, engineering goods, or diamonds, even pharmaceuticals has been sort of recently mentioned as one of the places where both countries sort of seek to deepen their ties in. And as Sarah excellently pointed, there has been the North-South Transport Corridor, which would just aim to connect India with Central Asian countries. And there have been certain FTA agreements as well being signed with those countries, which would again like benefit India as well as Russia in the long run. So with that, I think we can conclude today's discussion. This has been a very fruitful discussion in terms of discussing what prospects lies in front of both India and Russia in terms of their strategic partnerships. Both countries have sort of relied on managing expectations from the different international partners, and both have sort of found their results to be mixed as well. But overall, I think India and Russia have deepened their ties in terms of its economic cooperation as well as military cooperation. And both these countries seek to establish further grounds to deepen their ties as well as like be like sort of limit their exposure to Western powers and their influence in the Asian region. So with that, I would like to thank the panelists. I would like to thank Sarah for organizing this wonderful roundtable discussion. And we thank you for watching this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much.